Welcome to On Texas Football. Breaking news. On Texas Football has learned that Hero Kanu, defensive tackle, is expected to return to the Longhorns despite having walked on senior day. Kanu started for Texas, 31 tackles this season. A young man transferred last year from Ohio State to Texas. Gerry, this is big news because as you start looking down that schedule next year, defensive front is going to be a priority for a new defensive coordinator in Will Muschamp. What did you hear about Kanu that leads you to this report here?
Yeah, I think it's just multiple people or multiple sources are expecting him back. And can something change? It can always change, but multiple sources expect him to be back at Texas next year. And he did strongly consider off the season he had. And I know CJ will have all the stat breaks down of that. He's a guy that came to Texas from Ohio State, didn't have much production, just had a couple, 3 years of development. And then he immediately got himself on the NFL boards starting midway through the season with his early season play. Then that just accelerated in SEC. So that became a decision that had to be made for Hero Kanu that probably wasn't expected going into the season. Yeah. And then you mentioned on senior day, I was told he walked on senior day, and I mentioned this multiple times because his family was over from Germany in the States. So there was no guarantee that could happen again if he did decide to come back. So when he walked, I think a lot of people thought, oh, he's just gone. He's off to the NFL, but that wasn't the case. But there still were discussions and a decision that had to be made. But we do expect him to return to Texas for one more season. And that's really big because he has a lot of versatility at that defensive line position and could effectively fit in the Will Muschamp's scheme.
What do you think, CJ? Gerry mentioned that versatility, and I saw you nodding your head.
No, absolutely. Gerry, you mentioned those 3 developmental years at Ohio State. He totaled only 230 snaps over those 3 seasons. After the Citrus Bowl, he'll have more than doubled that this year alone at Texas. In fact, he's the most played defensive lineman out of anyone in this defensive front this year. And to y'all's point, I don't know if we expected that coming into the season. So to put on an NFL radar, look, I think another year is going to do him a lot of benefits in that regard. On top of that, look, you mentioned 31 tackles, Bobby. He had 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 17 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus as well. But it's his work on the run game, right? And it's his versatility for a defensive line that really has been a strength of this Texas team for quite some time. Again, I look at it, 435 snaps. He had 100 over the tackle, 50 out wide in a 9-tech. So this is a guy that provides a lot of versatility for this Texas defensive line. And on top of that as well, the leadership is something that is very underrated with Hero Kanu. 1 year on campus, he made a world of difference whenever it came to just getting all the ducks in line for Kenny Baker's room.
No, Sark put him out in front of the media, to your point. He absolutely did. Late in the year, he was like, Hero Kanu needs to be the guy going out there talking. CJ, I want to go back to you real quick. You mentioned that versatility, right? He's originally from Germany. He's just really starting to learn the game over time. 6'5", 300 pounds. Texas now, with Kanu coming back, again, we've been monitoring some other guys returning, but if you've got Arch Manning come back, Colin Simmons coming back, you're starting to fill in that roster, right, with top players returning. It feels to me like Texas is turning the pedals to make this a real, we've used the term all-in year for 2026. Kanu is part of that because it means you don't have to go to the portal for another guy, right? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, what is it? Back-to-back years of 5 defensive linemen out of the portal. It's been brand new units and rooms over the last 3 years. This provides that stability, that continuity, and of course that leadership that I just mentioned with Kanu. That's huge. And again, you go back to what his ceiling ultimately could be. Look, coming from Gettlandorf, Germany, his football playing days before Ohio State, it wasn't as extensive, obviously, playing the college level. Now to be on the field as often as he was and to do so for a second season, I bet by the end of next year, when we're making this video around this time, we're sitting there saying Hero Kanu is a world and a light and day different player, almost otherworldly, if you will, than what we saw originally when he first stepped foot on field for Texas against Ohio State.
Yeah, he's still getting better. Gerry, the defensive line as a whole now, sets up, and there's guys like Myron Charles, Alex January, Hero Kanu, I mean, there's a lot of guys right now. There could be guys and pieces they need on the defensive line, but as of right now, they look pretty solid. Could they still use a big over the tackle defensive lineman from a recruiting / portal perspective?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Because look, you still lose Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw off this team, so that is two older, experienced over the ball run defenders. Rod Watson was a little banged up last year at times too, so I think there's definitely a need for an adult, a grown guy over the football in Will Muschamp's scheme as well. In playing in the SEC, a 9-game SEC schedule, which is essentially 10-game SEC schedule if you count Ohio State's talent. So yeah, there's absolutely need for that. I think Texas really likes the pieces they have from a disruptor standpoint, especially some of those younger kids, right? And the versatility that some others can provide there. But I think there's absolutely a need for an over the ball player with enough size that has enough college experience for him.
All right, this is really good news for the Longhorns. We mentioned this idea that that there are other guys making decisions. Hero Kanu, we were reporting that he's expected to return. I'm sure he will make his own official announcement on his own time period. Not trying to take that away from him. Other guys that we're waiting on, Jack Indries, the tight end out of California. He is going to play in the bowl game, but may make a decision after the bowl game whether or not he stays or returns to Texas for his senior year. Trevor Goosby, big-time offensive tackle for the Longhorns. He's expected to make his decision relatively soon, whether it's the NFL or come back. Jelani McDonald, the safety, same situation. Is he going to go to the NFL? Is he going to return? Trey Wisner, the running back out of Waco and DeSoto, is he going to go to the pros, transfer, or come back? While we hope everybody's hopeful on all of these guys, they still have decisions ahead of them for sure. It is setting up to be one of those situations, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. It feels like Kanu and they can be almost a snowball rolling downhill, where you get a number of decisions coming out very, very positive, and that leads over into the portal period starting January 2nd. Is that an accurate assessment of the momentum that you see or feel and have been hearing about behind the scenes, Jerry?
Yeah, I think potentially, yes. I mean, look, I think there's some positive things we've been hearing on Trevor Goosby for a while. These guys still have to announce. Jack Indries has gone back and forth.
Yep.
Gone back and forth. So this stuff can still change. Jelani McDonald, I think we've heard some positive things on. So I do think every guy that you can get to come back, I mean, every situation's different though, right? Because what's your draft prospects and what are you really looking for? And what is your end game as far as the NFL draft and versus your development? But I do think it helps Texas. Look, I think there's the more positive news that comes out of this. Look, these guys are all friends. These guys know that a Hero Kanu came to Texas and they didn't really know who he was, but they now think he's a baller, right? So they say, okay, well, if this guy is returning to Texas, this helps our football team. I mean, so that does help. That does help you build momentum.
Yeah. CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to ask you this, Bobby, but in the sense of, snowball effect, momentum growing, I think it's twofold, right? You see these decisions of guys who could have gone to the league return, and it's the sense of, some guys buried on depth chart saying, all right, I want to keep my seat on the bus because I believe we're going to be a good unit. I'm going to earn my way onto the field and contribute to what I believe will be a good team, or the contrary, where it's, hey, these guys are returning. I'm not sure if I have a fit here. So that's, of course, the double-edged sword when it comes to NFL announcements or returning or portal. It all comes down to it. But, Bobby, all in all, anytime you can return a guy that's produced on that defensive line in the SEC who has, again, untapped potential still remaining in him, I think it's absolutely a win for Texas.
Those five, starting with Kanu, McDonald, Wisner, Indries, and Goosby, I'm just telling you, all five of those are NFL football players.
Yeah.
If all five of those are back with Arch, Colin, and a number of other players, That's a hell of a head start for Texas going into 2026. All right, that's going to do it. Hero Kanu expected to return to Texas for his senior season. I think it's big news because for multiple reasons, but starting with the value of those guys up front. Y'all saw it happen to A&M get run over a little bit on Saturday. OU, it happened to them a little bit at times too. The guys up front, you got to have. All right, for CJ Vogel and Gerry Hamilton, congratulations. He's got to do his own video announcement. We understand that. But Hero Kanu, hook 'em horns, buddy.